BigCountryPreps.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Capital Farm Credit Wednesday night podcast, our weekly look at the area athletic scene, what happened last week, and what's going on this week. I'm here with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And tonight, Dan, we are welcoming Hawley head football coach Mitch Abels to the show. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. We've talked a lot many times over the years just about what a remarkable job Coach Abels has done at Hawley, which, I mean, over the history of its program, had not had a lot of success. Obviously, Coach Schoonmaker had gotten them to the playoffs, which was a big deal at the time. But you look at what really Coach Abels has done since he got there, taking that to a whole new level. I mean, he took them from a program that had rarely made the playoffs in its history to a program that now is really a regional power, a program that you would not be surprised at all in a particular year if they made it to a region final, maybe competed for that opportunity at state. So it'll be fun talking to him about what he's built there and just this team in particular.
Before we get into our show, we need to thank our primary sponsor, Capital Farm Credit, with offices all over Texas, including Stanford and Abilene. Buy your own slice of Texas with Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better. And before we bring Coach Abels on and start talking more about the Hawley Bearcats and that program, we've got some ball games to discuss from last week. And why don't we start with the Big Country Preps game of the week, which I attended. A lot of people may have looked at that score and thought, okay, there was something fluky going on, a whole bunch of people were injured or whatever. Coleman beat Cisco 31-7. And I witnessed this, and I'm telling you right now, it was not a fluke. Coleman deserves and Cisco coach Kevin Stinnett was very gracious and gave them all the credit in the world. This Coleman team is for real. There's just no two ways about it. And it's their defense. It is their defense that is making this team a dominant force in the Big Country all of a sudden. We're talking about a defense that is quick, that hits very hard. They got some guys out there that hit like a freight train, and they're excellent sound tacklers. They get to the point of attack. You can't get a good push up front against them. It is a very stout defense, and anybody in this region is going to have to deal with these guys. And come playoff time, everybody that's hopeful of getting to Arlington, Cisco included, we're not going to eliminate Cisco as a contender. That's a good football team. Everybody in this region is going to have to deal with this Coleman team if you want to get to Arlington. This is a dangerous, sound football team.
Yeah, I mean, I had thought going into this game that this Coleman team was for real. I thought that they had an opportunity to go and play with and beat a Cisco. But we really hadn't seen them to that point tested by a team as strong as Cisco. So I think to do what they did to that Lobos team, like you said, 31-7, tells you just how good that football team is. And I think you talk about the defense, and it has been phenomenal. I mean, they've allowed 25 points or 32 points all year long. So that defense has been awesome. But I think when you put 31 points on this Cisco team, you're pretty good offensively as well. So this team is doing a whole lot of things really well, and it's showing on the field.
The problem that I had with Coleman going in, I knew they were good, but they were tough to gauge because they had wins over a 3-5 Miles team, a 3-5 Anson team, a 3-5 Grape Creek team, a 1-6 Colorado City team, an 0-8 De Leon team, and a 4-4 Goldthwaite team. They hadn't played any of the 7-1s or 6-2s or 8-0s in our area. They hadn't played anybody like that. So we really didn't have that measuring stick of how they were going to do against the teams that were really up there in the upper tier. It was just difficult to tell. We knew they were playing really well defensively, but how would their offense perform? And as it turned out, their defense gives that offense short fields, and they keep pushing against those short fields all night. And then if they happen to get behind your defense, have enough speed they're going to beat you to the corner. And that is their game. They're not going to throw the football all over the place. They're going to run the ball down your throat. They're very similar in style. They're very similar in style to Cisco.
Yeah.
It was like watching a blue version of Cisco.
Yeah. I think the one thing that makes them really dangerous, and you kind of mentioned it, is they're not going to throw a lot, but they've got a receiver in Braxton Smith, who's one of the area's top receivers. He's one of the most explosive receivers in the area. And a guy that you really have to account for in that passing game. And then they've got a quarterback this year in Jaden Jackson who can get him the football as well. So it's a really, really sound football team. You mentioned it, and it's been really fun to watch them do what they've done.
Yeah, they have a capable passing game, but it is similar to the sort of passing game that we have seen from Cisco in years where Cisco has one of its vintage teams, a team that might throw the ball 10 or 12 times a game, but, complete more than half of them and hurt you with a big play or two, when they do throw it. And that's exactly what they did against Cisco. It was they out Cisco'd Cisco that night.
And we mentioned about how you didn't know what to expect. Really, the one game, and I mentioned this, I think, on last week's podcast, the game that really kind of turned my head a little bit, and they've had several this year. I mean, they've dominated everybody. But when they beat Goldthwaite 42-6, that did perk my ears up a little bit because they dominated Goldthwaite more than Crawford did. And Crawford, we know how good
Goldthwaite team is not a bad team. That's not a bad team.
Not at all. And like I said, they beat them worse than Crawford did, and we know how good Crawford is.
All right. And with that, we're going to jump into some of the other area games. One of the big games last week, and we talked about this one, it was a tough pick. Wall at Breckenridge. We knew this was going to be a great ball game, and it was. The Hawks coming away with a 29-26 win at Breck. A key stat in that game, Breck missed 3 PATs, and it really turned out to be the difference in that ball game. In these close games, kicking is just absolutely vital. That's what cost Breck in that ball game. That was one of my upset picks. That was one of my upset picks from last week, and I blew it. That one I missed. And
it was looking good for a while there. Breckenridge led for quite a bit of that game early in the game, and then Wall kind of took over the lead in the second half. But it was never more than about a one-scored margin. This was a very competitive game between what I think are two good football teams. So I think Breckenridge continues to show that that they're going to be fine. This is definitely a playoff football team, and obviously they would have liked that win because that win would have gotten them probably the second seed in that district. But I think at the same time, it kind of shows you when you're taking a team with Wall's pedigree to that, to distance, that's a good showing.
Eastland at Jacksboro. Now, this was one of the upset picks that I got right. Jacksboro in an absolute thriller, topping Eastland 51-48. And this one really came. It was one of those scenarios, Dan, where Eastland was 2-0 in district play, and Jacksboro was 1-1. Jacksboro needed the win more than Eastland, and they were at home. And in those scenarios, you will often see an upset when a team needs the win more than the other guy, and they're at home. And that's what happened. An absolute shootout. Now, Eastland did lead for much of that ball game, but Jacksboro came back with a big second half rally to win it. But that doesn't kill Eastland at all. Eastland's still 2-1 in district. They still got a very good chance, and they could win that district still.
Yeah, and as competitive as that district is, there's a chance that you're going to have a big old cluster with a bunch of 2-loss teams right in that all tie for the top of that lead. Every single one of those games goes down to the wire. So this was no surprise. But it was just an offensive shootout, and unfortunately, Eastland came up on the short side.
A big congratulations to the Comanche Indians and Coach Escobar out there. They got their first win. They topped Millsap 49-34, and some people call that an upset. But you know what? I don't think it really was. The way that Comanche has been playing over the last couple of weeks, they've shown a clear improvement. They nearly knocked off Eastland at Eastland. They gave Dublin a hard time. This team is moving forward. And actually, I was surprised by the margin of victory, 49-34. But the fact that Comanche won that game does not shock me at all.
No, I don't think either of us were shocked by it. You picked them to win that game, and I thought long and hard about it, because it looked like we were heading in a direction that Comanche's first win was only, it was coming. We knew it was going to happen the way they were playing. And like you said, I think you got to give a lot of credit to Coach Escobar and give a lot of credit to those kids to kind of hang in there through a tough non-district portion of their schedule and really start playing their best football of the year in the games that matter. They're playing really well right now. And in that district, they've definitely got a shot to make the playoffs. I mean, this is a wide open district, and they're right in the thick of it.
All right, last week's big stunner, the Shaka. Last week, the Big Spring Steers. They go out to Andrews and hand Andrews a 48-19 loss. It didn't stun me that Big Spring won the game, because Big Spring's a capable football team this year. They are capable. But to knock them off 48-19 on the road, on their home field, that's a tough place to play out there. And they just absolutely whipped them.
Yeah. And that's a rivalry game. I mean, obviously Big Spring and Andrews have played a lot of games over the years. And generally speaking, particularly of late, Andrews kind of had their number, but Big Spring, they were healthy. First of all, Gabriel Baeza was back at the quarterback position. They had lost their last non-district game 58-7 without him. He comes back and it's a completely different story. Throws for over 400 yards, runs for close to 80, and then throws for, I think, 5 or 6 touchdowns. Just a huge game in that return. And And then their defense played really well as well. I think they picked off the Andrews quarterback 3 times and really kind of limited their damage. But Andrews' record isn't very strong this year, but they've been playing a lot better coming into districts. I was like you, I was surprised by that margin. But Big Spring's playing well, and that's a determined football team. They kind of set as their goal before the season. They want to win their first district championship since I think 1990, and they're in position to do that now. They got a big game next week against Fort Stockton, and that one's at home. If they win that, there's a very good chance they're going to be the district champs because they close out the district with San Angelo Lakeview.
All right, a couple other games I'd like to mention from the area last week. Early got Jackson Price back at quarterback, and that made a difference. Early went to Clyde. They snapped a 2-game losing streak by going out to Clyde and winning 34-15 and getting themselves right back in the playoff condition.
Yeah, a really big win for them in their playoff hopes. That was when they kind of needed to win because I know there were a lot of people, because Early had struggled their first 2 district games, that kind of thought that Clyde was going to catch them. And Early, I thought, bounced back really nicely. And then, like you said, getting Price back at that quarterback position was a big deal. But I think that, I mean, to beat Clyde, handily, I think was impressive because Clyde had been playing a lot better as well. They were coming off their first win of the season against San Angelo TLCA, but they had played Breckenridge pretty well the week before as well. So a big win for Early that gets them, that likely locks them up that number 4 playoff seed. I mean, that earns you a first round playoff game against Brock. But I think at this point with what Early's building right now, getting to the playoffs is still a big deal for that program.
All right. One other ball game that I want to mention from last week, which, was an important game out in District 3, Class 2A District 3 D1. Stanford went and got a win at Colorado City. So that it's a really kind of a jumbled mess of possibilities in that league right now. I would say that the most likely scenario is that Stanford is probably the favorite for the 4 seed by virtue of that win, but it is by no means certain. They're still going to have to beat Haskell. If Haskell knocks off Stanford, it's a tiebreaker. We got a tiebreaker. And you know what? Anson still has to take care of business also. Anson's only got 1 win, and they close with Stanford and Anson and C City. They're going to have to win one of those games and take care of business to lock down a playoff spot. So there's a lot of possibilities still in that league. But Stanford has a leg up by virtue of that win. That was an important win, 22-14 at C City. Yeah,
it was a big win for them for sure, especially considering the fact that they weren't playing particularly well going into that one. So I think that was a big one just to kind of get their season back on track. And like you said, that does put them probably in the catbird seat for that 4th playoff spot. But like you said, also, that is a wide open race there at the bottom of that district. You've got Anson at 1-2, Stanford at 1-2, Colorado City at 1-2, and then Haskell at 0-3. But Haskell still has games remaining against Anson and against Stanford, so they can work their way back into that mix as well. So wide open, and even Colorado City, though they lost that game to Stanford, they've got a shot to kind of get themselves back into the mix as well with a game against Anson later. So this could become a real mess of tiebreakers down the stretch, depending on how things turn out. But it's kind of fun. It's a fun district because obviously you've got Forsan and Hawley at the top, but everybody else is still fighting it out.
All right, and with that, let's talk about the locals, Dan. Class 5A and 6A, beginning on Thursday night. Cooper rebounding with a big win over Saginaw, 44-13.
Yeah, that was a nice rebound for them. They had a rough go at Fort Worth Brewer and played really well. And I think that the story of that game with Cooper in that 44-13 win was the fact that they were without quarterback Chris Warren, who was out injured, and freshman Keegan Anderson had to step in and did a really nice job. He did exactly what they needed him to do, really manage the offense. And then they got a big running game night from Jeremiah Riley. So a big game for the Cooper offense, big game for the Cooper defense, and a big win for the Cougs.
Okay, across town from you, while you were covering Wiley, the Abilene Eagles whipped Odessa High 42-7. The Eagles on a roll.
Yeah, and I don't think that one was a terrible surprise. And Odessa High was once again without its quarterback, which put them at a disadvantage. But Abilene High continues to do what they do. They're playing really well. Played a great defensive game, forced 3 or 4 turnovers, and offensively did exactly what they needed to do to get out of there with a good win, which is kind of what they're doing. They're kind of collecting wins at this point. So they've got the lighter part of their schedule and trying to hit the playoffs with some momentum, just as they did last year.
All right. I would characterize this as a bit of a surprise. The people from Wiley probably weren't surprised about it at all, but the way they had been playing of late over the last couple of weeks, I did not expect Wiley to knock off Randall. But I tell you what, you get the Bulldogs at home, they're a different team.
Yeah, and that's exactly the story there. I think this Wiley team has played well at home all year long. And I almost picked them this week for that reason. They had done a really good job of bouncing back from lopsided road losses on 2 other occasions this year. And they had rebounded with big wins right off of those. And I thought they might have a chance to do that again. And they did. This one was very, very close, very, very competitive. They needed a 45-yard field goal at the end to win it. But they played really, really well, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, where they limited Randall to less than 200 yards of offense. And then offensively, they got going in the second half a little bit, got the run game going, had a really nice, efficient passing game with Aiden Kincaid and a couple of his receivers. And just a huge win for them, because at this point, as Coach Martin has said on multiple occasions, they're in the playoffs now. I mean, they're basically in a win or go home situation now. They've got to win every game on their schedule to feel confident that they'll make the playoffs. So this was a big first step. Obviously, next week they've got Lubbock Cooper coming to town, and that's going to be a big challenge. But they know the challenge in front of them, and it seems like they're ready to respond to it. And I think the fact that they have that game at home is a big deal, because when you look, they've got a 1-score loss to Abilene Cooper at home. And we found out by now that Abilene Cooper's a pretty good team. They've blown out Brownwood. They beat Lubbock Monterey. They played Wichita Falls Rider really well over at Hughes Sandifer Stadium a couple weeks ago. So I think that they feel very confident in their ability to compete at home, and we'll see if they can do it against a really good Lubbock Cooper team next week.
All right, it's just about time to bring on Hawley head football coach Mitch Abels. But before we do that, we want to thank our sponsors. First and foremost, Capital Farm Credit, who brings you these Wednesday night podcasts every Wednesday night throughout the school year. Also, for the Love of the Game broadcasting, and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of K-Lakes 93.5 FM out of Breckenridge, KATX 97.7 FM out of Eastland, Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, 94.7 FM KWKQ out of Graham, KROO 1430 AM out of Breck, and KWBY 98.5 FM out of Ranger. That is for the Love of the Game broadcasting. Also, Rob Durham, sales consultant up at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac in Breckenridge, one of the nicest guys you'll ever want to meet. If you are in the market, give him a shout at 254-559-2266. That is Rob Durham, sales consultant up at Bear Chevrolet Buick Cadillac in Breckenridge. And finally, Phil Hill of the Abilene Realtors Group, big supporter of local athletics. If you're in the market, give him a shout at 325-669-5153 or visit his website at philhillproperties.com. And with that, Dan, it is time to bring on Hawley head football coach Mitch Abels. One of the things that's really most impressive about the job that he has done at Hawley, which really is remarkable, is we've now seen 3 really distinctive types of football teams. We have seen a run and gun, up-tempo, wide open offense with Quay Stokes running the show. We have seen a power running game, possession football team. And now we're seeing this dominating defensive football team, a team that is winning with unbelievable defense. These guys haven't been scored on since like the second week of September, which is, that's insanity. It's 5 straight shutouts. Nobody scored on them since the second week of September.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's absurd how well they're playing defensively. And the thing that makes them, I think, really special this year is they're probably not quite as strong as they've been offensively, as you said, when they've had Colton Marshall running the football or when they had Quay Stokes throwing it. But they're still an explosive offensive football team, a very capable football team, and they're very good on special teams, particularly in the return game, where you've got Kason O'Shields, who's a threat to take it back every single time. So they're a very, very well-rounded football team, and this one, Hawley's had some good defenses in the past. I don't think they've ever had anything close to this. This is a team that has allowed 21 points all season. That is insanity. We are in week 10? That's crazy.
I mean, these guys played Coleman. We might see a score in the negatives.
And they might. We might get that opportunity. That looks like it could be a playoff,
playoff
down the road. Yeah,
they might. We're talking about 2 of the most dominating defenses that we've seen in a while.
Yeah, that would be an awesome matchup, and it's one that could well happen. But yeah, again, the job that Coach Abels has done is just remarkable. He's part of that Jimmy Keeling, Hardin Simmons coaching tree. So many of those guys throughout the state doing great jobs. And Coach Abels, the job he's done at Hawley, I mean, I think you'd have trouble finding one that rivals it, even in the big. I mean, there are obviously coaches that have had a lot of success here, but I think Abels belongs in that discussion for sure.
All right, and with that, it's time to bring on the man.
Let's get him on.
And joining us now, Hawley head football coach Mitch Abels. Coach, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me.
All right, Coach, you've got another outstanding football team this year, undefeated. Tell us about what the keys have been this year to the success we're seeing. Because you lost a lot of people, some key people.
You're right. We did lose a lot of people, lost a lot of good players, and but on the flip side of that, we had a lot of guys that had got a lot of action last year, and that experience is definitely helping us as far as skill wise go, and just our defense right now is playing lights out. And Coach O'Shields does a great job with those guys, getting them prepared for our defensive game plan, and they've just been playing lights out so far this year.
And that actually leads us right into the next question. I mean, the one thing that strikes anybody looking at what y'all have done this year is that defense. Allowed 21 points, 5 straight shutouts. I mean, just really remarkable numbers. How much fun has that been to watch? And kind of, again, to the same token, what have been some keys to the success y'all have had on that side of the football?
It's been fun to watch them just start. We're not overly big up there on our defensive front, but we got some guys that are pretty quick off the ball and can get in the backfield and cause some problems. And that's kind of what we're banking on right now. And those guys doing a great job for us. We got Corley Williams. He's a senior this year, and he's kind of taking that leadership role up there to get those guys going. Him and Kyle Nichols and Lon Davis. I mean, I could go on and on. I know I'm going to leave some kids out. But those guys are just quick off the ball and try to get back in the backfield as far as they can and try to raise a little havoc. And it's been fun to watch them. And, as an offensive play caller, it makes you feel good when you can call when your back's not against the wall the whole time. And the defense so far has allowed us to just not take any gambles really and just try to play football and move the chains. And they've given us the ball and scored a lot of points for us so far this year. So it's been fun to watch.
And talking about that offense, I mean, the one thing you look at that kind of strikes me is the balance of both run to pass, and then also a lot of different guys touch the ball for you in this offense. I mean, you just talk about a little bit about that, just how many guys you are having contribute and kind of the design behind that.
Well, we feel good about our receiving core for sure. Those guys are, a lot of those guys are playing a lot of them are juniors, and they've been playing their third season on the football field. So, we feel good about those, and even the backups that we have. We have a real good skill-wise junior class, so we feel good about them. And, I can't say enough about Lawson Bailey and what he's done for us this year in the backfield. That's something that you didn't expect to happen. And he got the chance and took the ball and ran with it, and now, we're getting Austin Compton back. He's finally healthy. And that just gives us, 2 guys back there. And once we get Deontay back and healthy again, we got 3 guys that we can put their ball in the belly and we'll feel comfortable with it. So, we feel good about our weapons, and, there's only one football. So we got to kind of try to space it out and get the ball in their hands and let them go to work.
Coach, a lot of guys in your profession talk about adjusting your playing style to your personnel, but I don't know if I've ever seen anybody take it to the level that you have. It's amazing the difference in some of these teams that we've seen. We've seen a very quick tempo spread offense, throwing the football all over the place with Quay Stokes, and then we go to a power running game, possession football with Colton Marshall. And this year, I mean, the backbone of your team is, it's defense. It's almost like 3 distinct teams that we've seen, all of them winning. Can you talk a little bit about that? It seems like some coaches would be a little resistant to adjusting their style too much. You welcome it.
Well, it's been fun. You got to being at a small school and going with what you got coming up. You got to change some things every once in a while, and that's I'm not going to take a whole lot of credit for it because I got a lot of guys in that coach's room that sat down and we hammered out and try to figure out which way we need to go. And, we did. When Quay was here, we'd throw the ball around the field and try to play fast. And then when Colton Marshall's group got in there, we were more of a power run game, and it's just kind of materialized. And this year we're a pretty balanced football team, and it makes us happy.
And Coach, going back, to those early years, and with the success that Quay had, you look at just the sustainable level of success you've had at Hawley Really remarkable run you've been on. I mean, just how important was it rather to you to kind of build that type of program, to have a program that could sustain the success over years through classes and those sorts of things at a place in Hawley who hadn't experienced that type of success before?
It's been fun. And, again, I'll give the credit to my coaches and the kids that have been through the program, coming in here. And I think they were 13 plus years in the wing tee. I don't even think the kids knew where the numbers were on the football field. So, we kind of had to make that adjustment and find the landmarks. And, and I know a lot of people aren't big fans of 7-on-7, but that kind of helped us implement our offense when I first got here. And, just get the kids used to different landmarks on the field and how we wanted to spread the field out from sideline to sideline. And, it's just those groups came in and all the younger ones before them learned that. And, we feel like as a program right now that we don't have anybody that's really lost on either side of the ball. They kind of know what we're doing, where we're headed and where we're going.
Coach, Hawley went through 4 decades of losing. I mean, it was pretty rough for him. And then Coach Schoonmaker arrived and did a pretty good job and actually got the program, going forward. And then you took over for him and have brought it to an even higher level. I'm guessing that the town, with the success that you've had over the last few years, just been set on its ear.
Yeah, it's been fun. You go to there's not a whole lot in Hawley, but you can go into the Yes Way, and people that don't even know you don't know who they are will come up and talk to you and talk about how he's enjoying watching you play, or they're enjoying watching us play. And I feel like the stadium's starting to get a little fuller as we go. And but you got it right. When I first got here, it wasn't a system that was broke. They were in good shape when I got here, and I just kind of talked to those. I mean, I didn't bring anybody in with me. I kept everybody that was here on staff, and we just kind of put our heads together, and they kind of told me what they thought, and we all got on board and just went with it. And it definitely wasn't a broke situation when I got here. I just thought, let me put my head down and try to make this thing as best as I can make it. And that's kind of where we're going right now. It's been fun.
Coach, I see your Hardin-Simmons helmet behind you, and obviously you're part of that Jimmy Keeling group of coaches. A lot of you out there throughout the state, a lot of guys having a whole lot of success. I mean, he's a guy that I have a great deal of admiration for. I covered Hardin-Simmons for several years when I first got out here. Loved working with him. Just a wonderful human being, he and Susan. Obviously, he was honored this past week and well-deserving. Just what is he meant to you as far as an influence? And just talk a little about that group of coaches. You look at how many guys that have come out of that program that are doing what you're doing throughout the state.
Well, Coach Keeling, he means the world to me. And, that's kind of, my dad was kind of the guy that I wanted to follow. And he was a basketball coach and ended up going to Hardin-Simmons and playing football there. And, I'd say Coach Keeling and Coach Wardis and all those guys are kind of what spurred me on to coach football. And, he still advises me to this day. I call him on the phone all the time. He's a man that's seen just about anything that can be thrown at a coach, and he's a good person to get advice from. And that statue is well deserved for him. I mean, he's got the scoreboard with his name on it on one side and a statue on the other, and it's well deserved. And that was a pretty neat deal because I got to see a lot of guys that went through the program and got to see him and his wife. And it was a well-deserved honor for him. And, I feel like his legacy kind of lives through us. He's not coaching anymore. He's retired, but I think he watches every one of our games on the NFHS network. And, he's only a phone call away when I need to ask him something. So, I mean, he means the world to me. And that's kind of where I got my start with football wise.
Coach, you've worn a lot of different hats at Hawley. You've helped out, obviously. I mean, you aside from football, you've helped out with the boys basketball program, coaching. You've called games on the radio. Is there anything that you do not do out there? Are we going to catch you with a mop and a bucket out there too, or what?
Well, I would like to say I haven't done that, but I've mopped my share of floors too. But no, it's you just want to. it's something that you want to instill your kids and your coaches in, that you're gonna work till the job's done. And I've wore a lot of hats, but it's hats that I've enjoyed to wear. I love being around kids in this athletic program. I've had to coach a year of softball when we were shorthanded, and loved every minute of it. And it's just one of those deals where I love about every sport they had. I played it growing up and just always want to be a part of it. So I figured I might as well help out and coach rather than sit in the stands and watch. So it's been fun. It's been a blast, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Coach, there's an elephant in the room called the Forsan Buffaloes, and you're going to run across them in a season finale that, regardless of what happens this week, that game is still going to have, it's going to be really for all the marbles in district. The winner of that game is going to take the league. Obviously, you don't want to overlook anybody, so you can't even think about that until that week. That's probably what you're fighting against, because it is the elephant in the room.
Right. Well, we talked to our kids even after we finished up with Anson this week that, hey, we're not going to look ahead. It's one day at a time, and we got Colorado City next, and let's get through that hurdle, and then, we'll talk about the next one. And I can't say enough about the coaches in our district. They've all done a great job. I mean, you don't have a walk in the park very often in our district, our league, and Coach Phillips down at Forsan, he's got them rolling, and and we could see that coming. We played them when they were a little on the young side, had a lot of youth, and those kids were forced to play probably before they were ready, and now they're a well-oiled machine. And but like I said, we just trying to take it one day at a time. I know they're out there waiting on us, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
And we'll finish it up just taking a look at the region you're in. This is obviously a very tough region, even just the two districts that we cover with y'all's, and then the 4-2A there where you got Coleman and Cisco among others. So a really good region. Just kind of what are your thoughts on this region once you do get to that point and have that opportunity?
Well, I kind of feel the same way about the region that I do. Our district is there's a lot of good football out there. Coleman, Cisco, Forsan, New Deal, Sundown's always in there. I mean, Panhandle way up there, there's a lot of teams that have a lot of success, and, that just happens to make up our region. And, I think it's a good thing in a way, because if you can take care of our region, you got a chance. And, all those teams do a great job. They're all well coached, and it's going to be fun. One way or the other, it's going to be fun going through the playoffs and seeing these teams. And Cisco, just a lot of history there. And Coleman, when I first got to Hawley, Coleman they were just outstanding. And he kind of went through a little lull there for a couple of years, and now he's got them back playing great football. And that's just I can't say enough about the coaches in this area getting football teams ready to play at a high level.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be keeping an eye on you as always. And we will see you out in Forsan for that game. We will definitely see you for that one. Anyway, best of luck to you, and thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Yeah, well, before I go, I just want to thank you too, guys, and your Big Country Preps and what you do for kids in the area. It's a great deal. It's fun to follow everybody, and it kind of helps everybody follow everybody. So it's a good deal, and we just want to say thanks for doing that to kids in the area.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, Coach. And that was Hawley head football coach Mitch Abels. And actually, Dan, I've really grown to like this guy over the years. He's a good guy. He's very helpful, and a dang good coach. He's just done a fabulous job out there at Hawley.
Yeah, he's been a huge blessing for that Hawley program, for that Hawley community. He's been there a long time now. I mean, he's been there for going on a decade, and just done, like you said, a remarkable job. So it was good to get him on, especially to talk about this team. Unfortunately, we haven't had a whole lot of opportunities to go see them yet, just because they've been so dominant. And we're going to get that opportunity. I think we're both looking forward to that. But it was good to hear him and get his thoughts on this team, because we've been following this team very closely and everything they've done this year. And it was nice to get his take on it. But this is a special football team. As good as they've been, and they've had lots of good teams over the years, I'm not sure that this one isn't the best just because of its balance, offense and defense. I don't think they ever had a team this dominant defensively, and then they're still pairing it with a strong offense as well. Great special teams. There are not a lot of weaknesses for this Hawley football team, and it's going to be really fun to watch them once they get into that region, which, as we talked about with Coach Abels, is very tough. So it's going to be a really fun playoff run for them, and I'm excited about it.
I don't know. I think the jury is out. We'll see. Defensively, I think it's the best Hawley football team that we've seen. But I'll tell you what, the Hawley football team from 2 years ago that played post in a regional final was pretty darn good.
That's true.
With Colton Marshall running the football. They've had some great football teams. Yeah. Now, can this be the best team they've ever had? We shall see. It might be. The thing,
we'll see. We'll see. We'll learn a lot about them in that regular season finale against a really good Forsan team. But you look at what they've done defensively. It is just remarkable. I mean, like we said, 21 points all season long, 5 straight shutouts. Yes. I mean, you're talking about some elite numbers, and it's not like they haven't been tested a little, or played some quality teams throughout that stretch too. So we'll see. Like you said, they have a lot to prove once they get to the playoffs. But I just, when you look at what they bring to the table defensively with what's a very competent offense and really hadn't been healthy yet. That's what's funny crazy is that as they get healthier, their offense is probably going to get even stronger. So I like this football team. I'm excited to see what it can do, particularly once they get to the playoffs and are playing these really tough teams week in and week out in this region, because I think that they're going to do some special things and it's going to be fun to watch.
And with that, it's just about time to wrap up the Capital Farm Credit Wednesday night podcast. But before we do that, we want to remind you that we have 3 separate subscription packages here at BigCountryPreps.com. We've got a monthly for $5 a month. We've got a semi-annual subscription where we knock that price down to $4 a month. And we've got an annual where we knock the price down to $3 a month, 12 months, $36, a full year of Big Country High School athletic coverage.
We'd also like to remind you, if you ever see a photo you like in any one of our galleries, it is available for purchase. We offer digital downloads for just $7, and we also have prints and keepsakes that you can purchase as well. So make sure you check those out. As you're scrolling through the site, you'll notice that we take a lot of photos from these games we're at. It's something we really enjoy doing, and it's something we're proud of here at BigCountryPreps.com.
All Big Country, all high school, all the time. Welcome home.